Hey guys, Juan here. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully you like the backwards cap. I'm trying to develop a youthful look. I'm, I'm just messing. But on a serious note, before we dive into today's episode, my wife, she's like, Juan, COVID's been going on for a while, and you got to make sure you take care of yourself. And I said, where are you going with this? And then she's like, your beard, it looks like it looks like you're looking for Wilson. And if you guys remember that movie, Wilson with the volleyball. Um, Man, what was the name of that movie? I'm losing it right now. But he's out there in this deserted island, and his beard is everywhere. I think it's got Tom Hanks in it. If I remember it, I'm gonna throw it out there. But that was important for me. That was a good wake up call. I thought I'd share that with you before we dive in today. So she's always messing with me, keeping me on my toes. So for today, what we're going to do is we're going to get into signs that it's important for us to look at, to notice, so that we're able to not find ourselves in situations where emotional abuse is taking place. And often, I think often what takes place is that word emotional abuse is so loud that most people will be like, well, I just want to be in a situation that's going to have emotional abuse. Um, Yet life tends to throw curveballs, doesn't it? Life tends to sometimes provide us with an upbringing or give us an upbringing where we may already be desensitized, if you will, meaning that maybe we've had a rough upbringing, rough years, or a couple of rough relationships, that we're in this new spot, right? New relationship with somebody else, and there is emotional abuse taking place. And because we've been through a lot of shit in the past already, and it's been some heavy shit that we went through, it's difficult for us to really connect those dots. But for a fly on the wall, maybe for a therapist or a friend or a colleague you have out there, they're able to, they're not in there. They didn't go through those experiences, so they're able to see and say, yeah, emotional abuse is taking place there. So that's the purpose of the video here. The purpose is so that maybe if you're in a situation, you're able to move forward in the right direction. Or if you have a friend out there and they're in a situation, you provide support. But overall, just guidance here, guidance, support, me walking with you in your journey of life. We're going to get into signs that highlight emotional abuse within a relationship. The first one we're going to talk about is conflict. Now, conflict, there's different versions of conflict. There's conflict in a relationship where you both just disagree, right? You guys are heading down the street and you're going down, a road or a street, wherever you're going, and you're hungry. And you're like, hey, what do you want to eat? Let's get Chick-fil-A. I'm tired of damn Chick-fil-A. I don't want no Chick-fil-A. Let's do something else. Well, why'd you ask me? Right? So you're probably thinking, oh, that sounds like us. That's maybe a healthy level of conflict there. Two different mindsets. You're not going to agree on everything. Now, the conflict that we're talking about here is a little bit different. The conflict that we're talking about here is where you fear conflict. You're walking on eggshells. You avoid conflict because conflict isn't bickering. Conflict isn't going back and forth. Conflict increases the level of fight or flight. It causes you to really, feel tense inside. A struggle where you're screaming, within, but there's no noise coming out. And that sign there, can highlight where we're dancing or we're in that realm of emotional abuse. The next one that we're going to get into has to do with boundaries, when your boundaries are ignored. So if you're in a relationship where, you're able to step out of that relationship, maybe go back a year or 5 years before the relationship and think about my boundaries. What are my boundaries? And what do those boundaries mean? How do they come out in a relationship and in life? And then now you're in a relationship. Are you able to answer the question? Are my boundaries respected? Or are my boundaries disrespected? And if the boundaries are disrespected, it may mean that, we're kind of murky waters. So to give you an example of this, it would be where you find yourself, let's say, having a boundary of saying no, right? You're able to say no when you don't want to engage in sex. We'll kind of keep this one, very black and white. And before that relationship, you're able to do that. You were able to date other people and you were able to say no and it was okay. They were like, all right, I respect that. Or okay, that's fine. But then in this relationship, you notice that things kind of went in an interesting pathway. You would say no, but then your partner would start to really complain and attack you with certain words. And then you would start feeling bad. You would feel bad about saying no. And then you would shift over and just go with it. And at some point, you would say, well, I guess it's better if I say yes, so that, we didn't go through that. And there in that moment, right, a lot took place in that moment. And sometimes it takes place so fast and pulled by so many emotions that it's difficult for us to really grasp the rational component of it, that we had a boundary right before the relationship, and then we went into the relationship, and we're swimming through it like a fish swims through water, right? And then we find ourselves in the relationship where we're letting go of our boundary. And realistically, what we want to do in relationships is we want to come into a relationship with our boundaries. We want to say, hey, these are my boundaries. And then partner B says, and these are my boundaries. And then we support each other on each other's boundaries. We respect each other's boundaries, because that makes us feel whole. That makes us feel alive. That makes us feel that this is a very safe and comfortable place, the relationship that I voluntarily choose to be in. The next one we're going to go into that has to do with signs of emotional abuse has to do with controlling. So controlling is probably what you're thinking about, where you don't feel free. Very clear examples of this will be your phone, right? So before your relationship, more than likely you had no one monitoring your phone, no GPS on there. You're probably able to put your phone down somewhere, and then nobody came behind you and looked through all your text messages to see what you were doing, or who you were messaging, or your emails. And it's different. It's different if you're in a relationship, you guys want to share passwords for whatever healthy reasons that may be, versus where you're putting the phone down and your partner's pulling it away and saying, hey, let me see what you've been doing. You feel a sense of parent-child relationship there. You feel monitored. You feel controlled. You feel those things you can do, things that you can do versus things you can't do. So that's another sign there that's important for us to really take a step back and look at. And often what I like to do is I like to consider, who was I before the relationship? And who am I now during the relationship? And then typically what we want to look for is we want to look for growth. We want to look for a strong development of identity, becoming a better person, if you will. Being in this relationship has allowed me to strengthen my boundaries. Being in this relationship has allowed me to become a better partner, a better listener, a better father, a better parent, whatever it may be, but usually some sort of positive adjustment versus a loss of identity, a loss of authenticity and vulnerability. The last one that we want to go to is for signs of emotional abuse. It's where you feel that this is hypercritical basis taking place, or judgment towards you. And then I want you to think about that. Think about if there's that sense of, feeling that you could be judged in a certain way. An example of this would be if, let's say, you are going out and you're putting on a certain outfit, and maybe your partner is saying certain negative things about your outfit. Maybe they're saying, hey, that those pants are too tight, or you shouldn't wear that, or you shouldn't wear that cologne. Yet before the relationship, it was okay to wear that. Before the relationship, more importantly, you felt okay wearing that. You wore it because it's who you are. It's your identity. You felt genuine. You felt authentic, and whatever outfit you wanted to put on. And this is just one example that we're talking about here when it comes to emotional abuse and this judgment, if you will, negative judgment. So then now you find yourself in the relationship where you look at what you want to put on, and then you make a very strategic choice based off of avoiding that judgment. And this one even connects to the first one that we talked about, conflict, where you avoid conflict by maybe putting on a certain outfit or a certain cologne. And this is just one example. We could have went in many different directions of all of these that we discussed here today. Everything from avoiding conflict to boundaries to control to judgment taking place in your relationship. I hope that you found this video helpful. And if you do find yourself in a situation where emotional abuse is taking place, I do want to encourage you to look at, local resources in your area, whether it is a counselor, self-help, a hotline, really being able to put yourself, out there in a position of seeking support. I think once we get the ball rolling, once we're able to say, okay, let me put myself in a space where I'm able to find some sort of help, some sort of support, taking that first step. And you hear this out, you always hear this out there, right? It's that first step. Here's why the first step is so important. I'm stuttering here. The first step gives us empowerment. It gives us strength, and you receive so much strength from that empowerment. And what's beautiful about it is that the strength that you receive it from yourself. You did hear that correctly. Taking that first step, the strength that you receive, it all comes from you. And that's why it makes it so much easier after you make that first step to make the second and third and continue to move forward in the right direction. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have questions about it, it's always comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything I left out maybe that you want me to discuss. I'm more than happy to. Take care. Have an amazing day.